I'm staring at my screen at 1 in the morning, watching Republican senators literally run out of their own chamber after blowing up their own funding bill. And I cannot stop laughing, not because any of this is funny, but because the sheer absurdity of what just happened is so perfectly on brand for where we are as a country that if you wrote this as fiction, editors would reject it as too unrealistic. Let me paint you the scene. It's midnight in the Senate. Republicans have the votes. They've got a deal. Democrats were actually about to give them what they wanted, funding ICE and Border Patrol for 2 more weeks while pretending to negotiate restrictions that were never going to happen. Chuck Schumer was doing his usual thing, preparing to fold like a cheap lawn chair. Everything was set. All they had to do was vote yes on their own bill and go home. And then Lindsey Graham realized something. In the House version of the bill, they'd removed a provision. Not just any provision. A special little gift that Lindsey had tucked into a previous bill that would let him sue the United States government, sue the taxpayers, for millions of dollars because Jack Smith's investigation revealed his phone number showed up in records of calls to Donald Trump during the January 6th insurrection. Not wiretaps, not recordings of conversations, just phone numbers. The kind of metadata that appears on literally every phone bill in America. Lindsey Graham wanted to sue us, the American people, for millions of dollars because we found out he called Trump during an attempted coup. And when the House Republicans removed that provision, Lindsey Graham threw an absolute fit at midnight in the Senate chamber, and the whole thing collapsed. I want you to understand what this means. The Republicans just saved the Democrats from themselves. Chuck Schumer was about to give away the store, again, and Lindsey Graham's personal greed accidentally stopped him. You cannot make this up. But here's what really gets me. While I was processing this absolute circus, I did something I always do. I read the comments. Not just a few. I read over 1,200 comments from people trying to make sense of what's happening to this country. And what I found in those comments was more revealing than anything happening in the Senate chamber. 47% of the comments I analyzed were people demanding that we abolish ICE completely. Not reform it. Not add restrictions. Abolish it. And you know what? After 2 American citizens were killed by ICE in just the past week, I understand that fury. I feel it too. We're watching an organization that operates with zero accountability. That was given 47 days of so-called training because Trump is the 47th president. Think about how insane that is. We're watching this paramilitary force terrorize communities and murder people in the streets. But here's what's complicated. 28% of the comments were from people who are just as angry at Democrats as they are at Republicans. And I have to tell you, I felt that in my gut. Because watching Chuck Schumer prepare to fund ICE, even after everything we've seen, even after the murders, it makes you wonder whose side these people are actually on. One commenter wrote something that really stuck with me. They said, quote, "Schumer is a disgrace. Spineless Dems still have a lot of work to do to earn back any trust. I said what I said." End quote. And you know what? They're right. They're absolutely right. The Democratic leadership has a pattern. They negotiate from a position of weakness even when they have leverage. They preemptively compromise before Republicans even ask. They fund the very forces that are destroying everything they claim to stand for. So, when Republicans accidentally saved us from Democratic capitulation by being too greedy to accept their own victory, it would be hilarious if it wasn't so terrifying. Let me tell you what was supposed to happen tonight. The Senate was going to pass 5 appropriations bills, the normal stuff, keeping the government running. Then they were going to separate out the Department of Homeland Security funding, which includes ICE and Border Patrol, and pass that as a continuing resolution for 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, they were supposedly going to negotiate restrictions on ICE. Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen this movie before. Those restrictions were never going to materialize. ICE was going to get their money, they were going to keep terrorizing communities, and in 2 weeks we'd be right back here with Democrats saying, well, we tried, and Republicans getting everything they wanted. Except Lindsey Graham couldn't help himself. He looked at that bill and thought, wait a minute, where's my personal payday? Where's my lawsuit provision that lets me sue the American people for millions of dollars? And when he didn't see it, he blew the whole thing up. Think about the level of greed we're talking about here. Lindsey Graham is a United States Senator. He makes $174,000 a year, plus benefits that most Americans can only dream about. He's been in office for over 20 years. He's wealthy. He's comfortable. He will never struggle to pay a bill or worry about medical bankruptcy or wonder how he's going to afford retirement. But it's not enough. He wants more. He wants to sue us, the taxpayers who pay his salary, for millions of dollars because an investigation into an attempted overthrow of our government revealed that his phone number appeared in call records. Let me say that again. He wants us to pay him millions of dollars because we found out he was talking to the guy trying to overturn an election. The audacity is breathtaking. But here's what nobody's connecting. While Lindsey Graham is fighting for his lawsuit provision at midnight in the Senate, Donald Trump spent his evening at another premiere for that Melania documentary that nobody wants to watch. $40 million Jeff Bezos paid Melania for that film. Another $30 million to promote it. And Trump looks absolutely miserable in every clip, standing next to a woman who can barely hide her contempt for him. And then, and I want you to really hear this, then Trump sued his own government. He sued the IRS. He's suing his own Treasury Department for $10 billion. $10 billion. With a B. He's suing the government he's currently running, using cabinet members he appointed, over tax records that were legally released, claiming reputational harm, even though he's probably the most corrupt president in American history. Do you see the pattern here? Trump sues the government for $10 billion. Lindsey Graham demands his lawsuit provision for millions. This isn't governance. This is looting. This is systematic theft of taxpayer money by the people who are supposed to be serving us. And the absolute kicker? While Trump is suing for $10 billion, while Lindsey Graham is fighting for his millions, Trump goes on television and says he doesn't want housing prices to go down. Let me play you what he actually said, because you need to hear this in his own words. He said, quote, "We're going to keep those prices up. We're not going to destroy the value of their homes so that somebody that didn't work very hard can buy a home." End quote. Somebody that didn't work very hard. Let me translate that for you. Trump, who inherited $400 million from his father, who's never worked a real job in his life, who's declared bankruptcy 6 times, who paid $750 in federal taxes while working people pay thousands. Trump is saying that if you can't afford a house right now, it's because you didn't work very hard. Meanwhile, he's suing the government for $10 billion of our dollars. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. But what really broke my heart while reading these comments was hearing from people outside America. I read comment after comment from Canadians, from Europeans, from people around the world who used to respect us, who used to see America as a beacon, and they're horrified. They're putting out travel advisories, telling their citizens not to visit the United States. They're canceling World Cup tickets. They're boycotting American products. One Canadian woman wrote, quote, "How can any country trust your government to be honest and to keep tourists safe? Now you have unnamed masked men gunning down people in your streets. It can't get worse than that." End quote. Think about that. The world is watching masked agents of the United States government kill American citizens in the streets, and they're telling their people, don't go there, it's not safe. This is what we've become. This is how far we've fallen, and it happened so fast that half of us are still in shock, still trying to process how we got here. But here's what gives me a strange kind of hope tonight. Even though hope feels almost naive at this point, the Republicans can't even agree with themselves. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the White House. They should be able to pass whatever they want, and they can't. Because they're so consumed by greed, so busy fighting over who gets to loot the Treasury, so focused on their personal paydays, that they can't even pass their own bills. Lindsey Graham just proved that. At midnight, in front of the whole country. Now, I want to be very clear about where I stand on all of this. And I know some of you are going to disagree with me. I believe ICE needs to be abolished. Not reformed, not restricted, abolished. I think the entire Department of Homeland Security, which was created in a panic after 9/11 and has become a $400 billion monster, needs to be dismantled and rebuilt from scratch with actual accountability. I'm not naive. I know we need border security. I know we need immigration enforcement. But what we have right now is not that. What we have right now is a paramilitary force that operates outside the law, that kills American citizens with impunity, that terrorizes communities, that separates families, that locks children in cages. And I know that position sounds extreme to some people. I've read the comments from those who say, look, you can't just abolish border control. That's how Democrats lost voters in the first place. And I hear that argument. I do. There's a legitimate case to be made that we need some form of immigration enforcement. But here's what I can't accept. I cannot accept funding an organization that just killed 2 people in 1 week. I cannot accept giving money to an agency that operates in secret, that wears masks, that refuses to show badge numbers, that acts like an occupying force in American cities. If you want border security, fine. Let's have that conversation. But what we have right now is not border security. It's state-sponsored terrorism against our own people. And I will not pretend otherwise to sound more moderate. The Democrats who voted to fund this, who were prepared to write the check tonight before Lindsey Graham's greed accidentally stopped them, they need to answer for that. Chuck Schumer needs to answer for that, because there is no middle ground here. You either stand against state violence or you don't, and I'm tired of watching Democratic leaders fold. I'm tired of watching them negotiate away our basic rights and dignity for the sake of looking bipartisan. I'm tired of watching them enable the very fascism they claim to oppose. But tonight, just for tonight, the Republicans saved the Democrats from themselves. And it's only because Lindsey Graham is so greedy, so consumed by his desire to steal taxpayer money, that he blew up his own party's bill. Tomorrow they'll be back in the Senate chamber trying to figure this out. The government shutdown starts at 12:01 Saturday morning. We're less than 24 hours away, and I have no idea what's going to happen. Part of me thinks they'll scramble together some last-minute deal. They'll bring the House back from their vacation. Because yes, of course, MAGA Mike Johnson sent them on another vacation while the government was about to shut down. They'll find some compromise that gives Republicans most of what they want, and Democrats will declare a partial victory. But part of me wonders if this is it. If we've finally reached the point where the Republican Party is so dysfunctional, so consumed by infighting and greed, that they literally cannot govern even when they control everything. And I don't know which scenario is worse, because if they do find a compromise, it probably means ICE gets funded. It probably means more people die. It probably means we continue down this path toward full authoritarianism. But if the government shuts down, federal workers don't get paid, services stop, people suffer, and Republicans will blame Democrats, even though this is 100% a Republican-created crisis. There's something else happening here that I think a lot of people are missing. I've seen this demand over and over in the comments. Release the Epstein files. Release the unredacted Epstein files. And you know what? I think that's connected to all of this. Think about it. Why is Lindsey Graham so desperate to get paid for having his phone number revealed? What's he so scared of? Why did the government shut down the last time just before those files were supposed to be released? Why is there such panic about transparency? I can't prove this. I don't have evidence. But my gut tells me that the corruption we're seeing, the desperate money grabs, the lawsuit provisions, the chaos, it's all connected to a deeper rot. And that rot involves powerful people who are terrified of what happens when the truth comes out. Here's what I'm seeing in the pattern. Trump sues for $10 billion just days after taking office. Lindsey Graham demands his lawsuit provision. The Epstein files stay buried. ICE operates with no accountability. The government keeps shutting down. None of this is random. It's all protection. It's all covering tracks. It's all looting the Treasury before the walls close in. And the American people are paying for all of it. We're paying for Trump's lawsuits. We're paying for Lindsey Graham's greed. We're paying for ICE to terrorize us. We're paying for representatives who take vacation after vacation while our government collapses. So what do? What's the actual path forward here? First, we need to be absolutely clear about what we're demanding. No funding for ICE. Not reduced funding. Not conditional funding. Not 2-week continuing resolutions. No funding. If Democrats cannot hold that line, then they need to be replaced with people who will. Second, we need to demand accountability for the murders. Alex Prey and Renee Nicole Gidd were American citizens killed by federal agents. Their deaths require investigation and prosecution. Anyone involved in those killings needs to face justice. Third, we need to pressure every single Democratic representative and senator. Call them, email them, show up at their offices. Make it clear that funding ICE after these murders is a betrayal we will not forgive. And when I say we will not forgive, I mean primaries. I mean voting them out. I mean making them pay a political price for enabling fascism. Fourth, we need to support the communities being terrorized. Minneapolis just showed us what resistance looks like. They put themselves on the line. They protected their neighbors. We need to follow that example in every city where ICE operates. And fifth, we need to keep demanding those Epstein files. Because I'm convinced that when those files come out, when we see the full scope of the corruption and the crimes and the cover-ups, everything else starts to make sense. The desperate money grabs, the chaos, the authoritarianism, it's all connected. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this sounds extreme. This sounds like conspiracy thinking. And maybe you're right. Maybe I'm seeing patterns that aren't there. Maybe this is just normal political dysfunction and not some coordinated looting operation. But I've been watching politics for a long time, and I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a president sue his own government for $10 billion. I've never seen senators demand millions for having their phone numbers revealed. I've never seen federal agents murder citizens in the streets with no consequences. I've never seen a government that controls everything, still unable to pass basic funding bills. This isn't normal dysfunction. This is collapse. This is what it looks like when institutions fail. When the people in power care more about stealing whatever they can grab than about the country they're supposed to serve. And the scariest part? Half the country doesn't even realize it's happening. They're still watching Fox News telling them that everything's fine, that Trump's making America great again, that the real problem is Democrats and immigrants and woke culture. Meanwhile, Trump is literally suing us for $10 billion. Lindsey Graham is literally demanding millions for being investigated. ICE is literally killing citizens, and Republicans can't even pass their own bills because they're too busy fighting over who gets the bigger piece of the looting operation. I want to end with something that one commenter wrote that I think captures where a lot of us are right now. They said, quote, "The last Donald Trump approval rating was 38% approve, 56% disapprove. What a terrible nation. It should be 0%. Leave while you still can." End quote. And I felt that. I felt that despair. Because how do we fix a country where 38% of people still support this? Where millions of Americans look at Trump suing the government for $10 billion and think, yeah, that's my guy. Where people watch ICE kill citizens and think, good, those people probably deserved it. But here's the thing. We can't leave. This is our country. These are our communities. These are our neighbors and our families and our futures. And if we give up, if we surrender to despair, then they win. The looters win. The authoritarians win. The people who see America as nothing more than a piggy bank to smash win. So we don't give up. We get angry. We get organized. We show up. We make noise. We protect each other. We demand accountability. We vote out every single person who enabled this. We build something better from the ruins of what they've destroyed. Tomorrow morning, the Senate will try again. Maybe they'll find a deal. Maybe the government will shut down. Either way, the fight continues, and we need to be ready for it. Call your representatives. Tell them no funding for ICE. Demand the Epstein files. Support the Minneapolis community. Organize in your own city. Prepare for resistance. Because this is only going to get worse before it gets better. But it can get better. That's what I have to believe. Even on nights like this, when Republican senators are literally blowing up their own bills at midnight because they're too greedy to accept victory, even when Trump is suing us for $10 billion, even when ICE is murdering citizens in the streets, even when the whole world is watching America collapse in real time, it can get better. But only if we fight for it. Only if we refuse to accept this as normal. Only if we demand more from our leaders and from ourselves. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep calling this out. I'm going to keep demanding accountability. And I hope you'll do the same, because we're all we've got. The institutions are failing. The leaders are failing. The only thing standing between us and complete collapse is us. Regular people who still believe that America can be better than this. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe it's already too late. But I don't think so. I think there are enough of us who are awake, who are angry, who are ready to fight back. And I think when we do, when we finally say enough, when we finally demand real change, we might be surprised by what's possible. So let's find out. Let's show them what happens when you push people too far. When you loot the Treasury once too often. When you kill one too many innocent people. When you blow up one too many of your own bills at midnight because your greed exceeds your ambition. Let's show them that we're done. That we're not funding ICE. That we're not accepting government shutdowns. That we're not tolerating lawsuits against the taxpayers. That we're not going quietly into whatever authoritarian nightmare they're building. Let's show them who really has the power in this country. And it's not Lindsey Graham. It's not Donald Trump. It's not the Republican senators running out of chambers at midnight. It's us. It always has been. We just forgot for a while. Time to remember.